Can you hear me?
Yes, I was, you know what? It says recording already. And I'm like, ah!
Welcome to the Lift Oneself podcast, Claudia. I am so thankful you're here with me.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you, Natalie.
Let's take a breath together. Breathe in through your nose. Hold it. Gently release. How is your heart doing?
It's fine. It's calm.
What can you thank COVID for?
What can I thank COVID for? Wow, that's a big one. It's like, what can I think? I think slowing down was probably one of the things that the whole world did. Something we all needed. Having the time to kind of each one of us in the family probably break down, leave that busyness aside, whatever that is for each one, each ages, and kind of, the word co-creation that you just said comes to me at the beginning of COVID. I was a little bit off probably, and I was maybe, okay, so what are we going to co-create now with this? How are we going to live this? What do I want my kids to walk out of this? There was a little bit of anxiety or this driven need of, okay, let's make something to be thankful about or whatever. And then you just, over the time, you just let go of that, and just be more and navigate it. And it's not been easy. There have been times where I think living so many people also in the same household, even though with not being able to, we have our own space, but at the same time, everyone has their own things going on. And it was a scary moment in some aspects at the beginning, and there was a whole evolution of it. So there's been lots of things, but if you come it back down to the thankfulness, I think we created a lot of nice moments again together, without having to be running here or there, or sports, which are very big in the house. Mm-hmm. So nice family moments. My stepson, who studied in the UK at that time, he came for Christmas and ended up staying 6-7 months because he couldn't go back as they shut down over there. So we had an opportunity to really enjoy and the boys having their big brother here, which is not always on little doses. Yeah. So just have the time to really, have their brother living with them after many years of not. So there are lots of things that I can probably think of that there are to thankful.
Yeah, I asked that question because, media and our nervous system, we always look for the negative, what can keep safe, what is there is. And the theme of COVID is everything was disrupted and everything's wrong and we lost normal and we lost. Yet there's a part where we have to have a practice of looking for what was to be grateful of it, because everything wasn't a shitstorm. There were some great things, and it takes a practice to do that, because we can look, especially those that I hold a space right now that are grieving because they lost loved ones through this pandemic. That's very challenging to look for things to appreciate, to still feel alive. And that takes a lot of work. And it's a practice. And sometimes people will be like, well, it doesn't come naturally. And it's like, no, joy doesn't always come naturally. Looking for things to appreciate and be grateful for is not something that comes naturally.
No, it's an exercise.
It is. It's practice. And you have to take a moment to really adjust yourself to see that instead of being in that darkness and that constriction of things, which grief can do to people.
Yes. And I think there's also, which comes with that, is also a change of perspective. No? I have all my family either in Brazil for my husband or in Europe. And there were countries in Europe and in Brazil which were really locked down.
Yeah.
like, so being able to look at that and being your own privilege.
Yeah.
Yes, I can look back and I was very lucky. We live in a place with a big house where everyone had their own space. I have lots of friends and people who live in apartments in the cities. They are not bad spaces, though. If you live there 4 or 5 people and you're not allowed to go on the street, you're not allowed to go down for a walk. They were so locked down. That was not funny. So by looking at the privilege you have, but realizing, look, we could go for walks. We have a backyard. We There's so much to be thankful there that we could not even compare what we went through to so many others, as you said, independently, even if there's grief of losing or not, just for the fact of how we were living through the pandemic.
Yeah.
So again, just by being able to look at that perspective, that activates your gratefulness and see, look, I was so much more lucky and I had so much more ability to go outside of something that is so normal or that's been so granted for us, but many people didn't. They were stuck in their apartments for months with little kids, with um, tweens, and with teens. So there's So I do agree with you that the exercise of gratefulness and looking at that is an important for your mindset.
It very important, especially when you're being bombarded all the time that the world is almost going into an apocalypse and everything is just devastating. And it's like, wait a minute, there is still things that are thriving. There's still life here. And I understand from my own individual experience, when we don't get our way or when we cannot find full expression, it can get really dark. And it's an
Mm-hmm.
energy that is, it takes a responsibility to be with that energy and to be able to shift it in a different way, not in, and at times it needs to be destructive until you understand what is it that I'm actually wrestling with within myself. And like you said, a lot of people, what they had to experience was no different than prison life.
Mm-hmm.
In a way that, wait a minute, I'm supposed to have freedom, but I'm feeling like I'm imprisoned. And then having to see the definitions that we've created for what family is supposed to be like, or relationships, or having to see our expectations, having to see where we're trying to accomplish or busying ourselves. And really, are we in relations with the people around us? Or what does family really look like? What does the role of parenting, what does that look like? I'm thankful of the disruption of unearthing a lot of things that people could finally, if they're willing to, create new definitions for what their life needs to look like, and how the connection and sever those attachments that can be so toxic for us and come into that connection and allowing ourselves to be human. Like, we have emotions. We're going to mess up. We're going to yell. We're going to say some foul language. We're going to be very loving. One day, want to be nurturing, caretaking, doing all that. The next day, we don't want to have nothing to do with it. And we have to allow the ebbs and flows of these things. That's where I've seen for myself is the communication. I have to be able to communicate my inner state. And just because I showed up one way one day doesn't mean that it's going to be continuous all the time,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because life hits us with all kinds of different things. And so it's, for me, it has been really being empowered of communicating what I'm going through and not having that wonderful little inner critic of, it's the other people, it's them, it's that, it's this. And it's like, no, what's going on with you? And what are you constricted in that you think you have to be this certain way, and you're not really being in touch with your own emotions and being able to communicate what you're actually feeling, or what somebody else's actions, especially when I have little humans that are 11, they're twins. So when
Mm-hmm.
they're doing something, it's like, I have to tell them how I'm feeling. how that is making, and sometimes we'll have this, oh, parents just take it all, or we are invincible. And it's like, no, if you're going to teach them about social settings, you have to be able to articulate your emotions too, for myself, and be able to say, like, how you're speaking or how you're doing, this is how I'm interpreting it. Because we all interpret things in a different way. And I feel for those, we met a few years ago doing our inner work. We've built up some practices, some tools. I see so many that are coming into a space that they're like, what is this? And I don't even know where to go or what to do with this. Like, no one ever told me about this inner dimension. No one ever told me that I could question myself or see the other side of things. Look at context. I have emotions. What is that? I have sensitivity. Seeing these parts where there's survival and it's needed, like, to be able to create and, navigate through the world. Yet a lot of times we cut off our sensitivity. And then it's like we become repulsed with it later on because we've been so separated from it. Like when we hear the women that they're so emotional, and it's like, when you're nurturing and you're seeing the totality of things, I need to be sensitive and I need to have my emotions to make sense of things. It doesn't make me invalid. It actually allows me to open up my heart even more and allows me to process all the stuff that's going on. But a lot of us as women too, our voices have been suppressed. We've been oppressed and not allowed. So when we have to speak, there's a lot of emotions that are going to come out. And I think that is what I am appreciating through COVID, is that women are coming back into their authority and their authentic way of, I'm going to use my own voice. And it's going to look messy. And I have to be able to go through that mess to be able to connect with myself and be what I have to be, not all the masks that I have taken on for the sake of family, society, culture, and even myself, of how I want to be in relationship with people. And I think that's, it's no easy task to be doing this. And it's a continual one. How do you support your mental health?
I think it's an ongoing process too. I think it's a learning, it's a journey. I've had times where I've done things where I now look back and like, oh, this really worked better. And that really said, well, I'm not doing it anymore though. So, how can I go back to it? I think it is a constant, yes, it's a constant rechecking in with yourself, because I feel we can very quickly get thrown off the track, or I lose my track very quickly, in the sense of, okay, I have a system in place, but then consistency is not something really that I'm good at. So then, I break it and then I try something else, but then you realize this is not really working. My own time is very valid. So what have I done? Yes, that's true. So in the last, I've came to a point where I was coaching a lot. Either there was always something that I do coach two areas, kind of. I do have coaching, conscious parenting, or my parenting coaching clients, and I do executive and leadership coaching. Okay. My executive leadership coaching is my biggest part of my coaching. So there's always something that called me to be saying yes to. I kept saying yes to many things, either because the project was in Asia and I never had really coached Asian, or because I wanted to go more into South America and I wanted to have coaching in Portuguese and in Spanish. So, this one is in Mexico. This one is in, so there was, this is an industry that I've never done. Oh, this is a great product. Whatever. There's always been something that I could see myself stretching myself more and more. Or in order to coach people in India, I have to open up my calendar at 7 a.m. But this is a project that I really want for 2 or 3 months. So I'm willing to do that. But then I do struggle at home. How do I, my timings? My son is the time that was going to school. Then I talk to him and let him know, hey, listen, this is only for 2 months, but the kid doesn't really understand. Why do you really need to do this? I'm here right now. If you don't see me, yes, I do see you. And I really also need that, you know? So there was this drive of me wanting to explore this and that. And what I noticed though, as you keep checking in, is you're noticing, yes, it's beautiful. It fills my cup in one way, but it drains my cup in many others. Maybe the family time, maybe the way I show up with the kid, maybe the time that the kid wants from you and needs from you, which you also want. And at the same time, I came to a point which I was more exhausted of, because it is a lot of mental work. So I need to recharge myself. And one way is, yes, doing physical exercise. Yes, it's meditating, it's slowing down. But one big thing was to really start to say no, was to say no and start putting boundaries down. And I like variety a lot. So I'm in the school councils, I'm in town councils, and then I was coaching for this nonprofit of Jane Finette, who it's called the Coaching Fellowship, which she wrote the book. So I was a coach, I was in the council there. So, and you start seeing, I have to start saying no, 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 to gain up again free time for myself, because time with me is one of the most valuable things. But this is a process. It seems very clear for you that you're listening to me probably and saying, oh, that didn't take much time to start, to start realizing that you had to start saying no. No, because everything was organic. It was not that I do this every week. It's, one call a month here. It's an hour that you have to be there. So I can do this. And I want to do this because everything had a mission and had a purpose behind. And still, it's important to start to say no. So I've been kind of, over the last 2 years, I've been kind of starting to reduce and staying, and taking myself out of this list and taking myself out of that list. So at this point, I have a lot of time, which I'm like, okay. But the good thing is to let go of, now that you've created this time that I have, which I'm very clear with my boundaries in the coaching. I'm very clear in the times that I coach. I have days that I don't. Gives me the opportunity to do this, what we're doing right now, which is really, space has been opened up for people to connect with me. Let's just have a conversation. Clients have come up in my private practice in a way that I couldn't, because I was so busy that I didn't even have the energy or the space for people to, to come into my practice. You see what I'm saying? So the saying no and no opens up all these possibilities and opportunities of saying yes to all these new things, which is, I don't know if I lost the thread a little bit of what the question was.
Not at all. Not at all.
Yes, my mental health. So my mental health is my time. My mental health is having the sense of freedom, which is very important to me. And having the time to go on a walk, having the time to just sit down maybe and meditate, or just be in silence with myself, or read or learn. So using this time for other things, to take care of my family, to be there for my boys, in a relaxed and fun way, rather than, I have to now do this and do that. This is how I take care of my mental health.
Thank you for that intimacy. That was an intimate moment to, share. We don't realize how speaking our process, and where it seems like, oh, well, you should already see this or know this. It's like, when you're in the moment of living through things, you don't know how to disrupt that treadmill. You don't know how to actually question the energy where it's pulling you, or the curiosity or imagination, all these things, and really, again, look at life in context, because we just get kind of stuck in the energy and just go with it. And it's like, wait, context. There's a whole Claudia that has a whole bunch of different roles. And this part is not the only part. And I loved your analogy of the cup. One cup is getting full, the other one isn't. Yet, what do I really value? And that's where we can get, like, it's like, I'm putting my career before my family. Yet I get really fulfilled with that. Yet I should be more fulfilled with my family, and finding the balance with that. Because it's not picking one or the other. It's okay, well, what fills Claudia up and what is too much for her also. So I
Yes, and who do I? So I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's the question is, who who do I want to be when I show up? How it's not that how do I want to be remembered by my kids, but I could see in many moments I was like, oh, I'm not walking my talk, and walking my talk is very important to me, and I could see that I was kind of not in integrity in some moments of that. Um, Something that I also did for that is there's this great exercise that is kind of auditing your energy. So I was really, in order for over during these 2 years, I was really aware of saying and sitting down and checking. Yes, the purposes are always there, the missions are important. There's always a big why to it. However, there are moments to really see, okay, how am I in these meetings? How am I getting the same energy that I used to get? Am I feeling alive, even though the purpose is important? I'm not saying it's not anymore, but where am I? I have evolved, the mission has evolved. Where am I in the picture? And by really auditing how I feel now that I'm talking to you, or how did I feel when I coached that type of person? How did I feel when was in this meeting? Who the meeting was with? That helped me also to kind of check in with me more and say maybe it's time, to start scratching things off the list.
thank you for giving that example for people because it's important. We don't, a lot of people don't know to do the check in with their energy. And, after meetings or things that we've done, check in and say, well, how did that make you feel? Are you depleted or drained?
Mm-hmm.
Why you keep repeating it? Like, why are you still there? Like, it's not filling you and energizing you. And,
Well, but the bigger picture does, it's an important
mhm,
mission. It's something you've done maybe for a year. So it's there. It doesn't,
yeah,
until you don't question yourself,
yeah,
you can just keep going and you keep going and you keep going. But you have to take this reset button and say, okay, let's see. How am I feeling? What is this giving me? Is this giving me something? Is it not? Where am I in the scale of my energy in order to see, do I want to continue?
yeah, exactly. Because as you said, um, the mission, the purpose, it doesn't negate that. It's still important. Yet it's
Mm-hmm.
like having to evaluate and seeing, do I still need to be here? Or have I
Mm-hmm.
evolved to go on somewhere else and somebody else can come into this position? Because if you have a faith and trust in a higher power, you have to let go of thinking it's all on you. And that
Mm-hmm.
is a challenging space to be in to discover, wait a minute, I'm taking everything on me, forgetting that, wait a minute, if I'm tethered to a higher power, I have to check in with myself and also see where possibly I don't need to serve here in it anymore. There's somewhere else where I can serve and let somebody else in here and I go into another. And that becomes that whole connection of things and moving things around. Yet a lot of people stay with the same thing for decades and decades and never even were never even had the curiosity to ask, is there something different I could be doing?
Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with that either.
No,
I mean, that's the thing. Sometimes people like that are maybe happier um,
it's
than,
needed
than,
too.
than others. So it's all okay. The question is really about you and yourself.
Yeah.
Where are you in that? Without the judgment of whatever everyone else does with it.
Yeah.
Um,
You have a podcast.
mhm.
Could you, because I don't speak Spanish, so I don't want to butcher the title. And could you please say it in your native tongue what the title is?
The podcast is called Vivir en Curiosidad, which means living in curiosity.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, it's a podcast basically, which is done by myself. So it's not, I don't have any, I had one person once, a friend of mine, coach colleague, that she had a conversation with me. I've been thinking about, should I not bring more people into this? How should I change it or not? At this moment, it has been more of a, bringing my experiences of life into my leadership and parenting. How can I bring both of them together? How can I teach or show some exercises and teach some things about leadership and parenting, but really applying it also to my moments and my own um, my own experiences and my own day-to-day life.
What had you decide to do a podcast?
Well, in the first chapter, I explain that, but I'm happy to say this in English now, so maybe more people know this. But it's funny. I don't know if it's funny, but people have many times told me about my voice. I have a very deep voice. I don't know, but it is. Some people have made comments about that since I was a teenage girl. And then I used to be a headhunter. So as a headhunter, I used to have a lot of phone conversations before I meet my candidates in the interviews, and then I continue on. And so I've had, again, people talking about that. And then one of my friends, professional contacts and friend, yeah, he's like, he told me once, oh, you should be on the radio. On the radio. I'm like, nah, doesn't go with me. How much should I say on the radio? So I've been over years, since I've become a coach and you see more people doing different things, I thought about, oh, maybe what can I do with this voice without having to do a live or without showing up in the real thing, because that was still a little bit of a confidence issue for me. But then over COVID, I started to see how everyone else was doing all those podcasts that I had been thinking about. So that idea that I had 5 years ago and I never followed through, suddenly everyone was doing a podcast. And I'm like, no, I just missed this. And everyone, at least I felt a lot of people were doing it in English. So I felt that the market in English was completely overflown. So I was like, I need to be different. There's always this part of me that needs to be something different in me. I want to do something different. So I'm going to go for my Spanish and Spanish speaking people, and I'm going to do it there. So that's what I decided a little bit, in order to share and be the voice, speak up and voice. I believe a lot in sharing. I believe a lot in growth through stories of others. I believe a lot that by hearing other people, you take what works for you. It's not that the whole story needs to work, but you take what works for you and just pick up. So I felt that there was a need really for me to share. Becoming very conscious of always bringing it back to my own experience, because sometimes I say something and I feel like, oh, if this one hurts you, or if that, whoever listens to that can be misinterpreted. Because there is a concept that I talk about. I don't know if you know Fred Kaufman. He's an Argentinian coach. He has a book about conscious business. And he talks about the player versus the victim. And the word victim can be a big word in the sense of can be interpreted in many ways, So I make very sure, and I hope I get it, I don't know, that I always bring it back to, okay, this is my definition based on this, of what he says in this moment right now, based on that, So I always bring it back in my thoughts, in my opinion in this, because it is true. It can be seen, and everyone has, even the word curiosity people have come up to me. It's like, oh, I thought about this, I thought about that. I'm like, well, you see, this is what it is for me. So being very conscious and careful of what I'm revealing is based on how I see it and how I perceive it and what I define as, which can be completely different for everyone else.
I'm going to ask you, how do you define curiosity?
Oh, okay. So yes, curiosity for me is just being open and wondering, wanting to explore and learn. There's a big of learning aspect behind of exploring and openness to see what's there. And again, it's what we said before. It all happened more in relationship to as parents. As yes, it's very easy to blame our children. It's very easy to put it on the others. It's very easy to blame life for it, because life is going to throw thousands of things against you. It is going to happen. But the fact of looking into you, to really being curious about, okay, what's happening right here, right now? Why am I emotionally triggered? Why am I this? Why am I that? What are my thoughts? What is my heart? So by being curious about all of you, that's when I think then you're just like, you become more aware and decide, and you can choose again based on your own perception, but you can choose then of how you want to live that. And you're more in that aspect also become more empathic and understanding of really what goes on for the other.
I'm going to bring you into a reflective question.
Okay.
Claudia's like, what are you doing to me now?
I know. I'm like, have I even answered any of the questions that she asked me in the manner that she expected, that she wanted, or that were the right ones?
You answered them exactly how they were supposed to. So you
To
got
be.
an
I
A
know.
on
I
all
know.
of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my ego again. You see, ego comes back, comes back,
I
comes back.
know. I know.
So tell me.
I'm going to ask you to go back to your 18-year-old self.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And I'm going to ask you to bring your awareness of right now. And you're allowed to only say 3 words to
That's what
yourself.
someone posted that the other day on the Facebook. I had a friend who had that question. I was like, I didn't answer that one because I didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
So now you want me to think about it. Okay.
So just think of your 18-year-old self and bring this awareness that you have now and tell your 18-year-old self 3 words and take time to reflect.
Your desires matter. Or yes, it sounds. Yeah, I like that one. I like that one. Again, I do. Let's put it all in perspective. I think I'm pretty proud of the life, and I've had an easy life in many aspects, so I can't really complain. But it's true that my own desires were many times maybe left aside for pleasing others. Justified in my own head. Okay. Justified in my own head. But yeah, let's use these 3.
It's we at times when we have to reflect, we have to see some of the choices that we made. And that's where the compassion comes in. Because we see at times where we put other people before ourselves, yet understanding when we look again at context, we can understand, well, that was the choice that you had to make because of the environment and the way that you were relating with yourself. And then understanding the relationship with desire. Like everything you desired wasn't able to be attained because of all kinds of things that you couldn't see at the moment, at the time. And that's why it's like then coming back of, okay, these desires are still there and they still matter and you can still connect into them. Like this is why some things we don't know how to put in context for ourselves. And because we think we didn't get it as a child, it's a waste of time to do it right now, where we're forgetting that that energy of desire, you have to support it. And when you see that there was something that was limited, support it so that there's more opening for you to see, oh, I can enjoy myself in the simplicity of life. I can play.
But I do think there's some other beliefs probably in the way too.
Oh yeah.
What happens to me in many moments is I do feel I have those desires, but then you talk yourself out of it because, oh no, this is family moment, or you're supposed to do this with someone else, or you're supposed to do this as a family, or you're supposed to, rather than really saying, no, just give it to yourself and it's okay. Just you create this for you because this is something you want. And it's okay if maybe nobody else wants to do it with you because they have their own needs and wants. But that's the big one for me at the end. There's always this like, okay, well, no, let's stay home or let's not do this because then I'm going to be in connecting with the kids. And maybe you're not even connecting either because everyone is doing their own thing. But you have this belief that it has to be done in a way or in a certain way or with certain people, rather than just really honoring yourself and do it.
Yeah. And like you said, we have so many beliefs, so many filters, so many defense mechanisms to uncharge, to be able to allow ourselves to have this opportunity, have this possibility. And it takes navigating. And that's why coaching, therapy, speaking with somebody allows us to disarm those spaces, and we can go into that vulnerability and give ourselves permission.
Permission.
Although we have to hear it from somebody else at times, we just forget of our power of giving ourselves permission and that we're validated to do this for ourselves. And that's where it comes in that you just didn't see, and it's okay. It's looking at now you have the ability. And now when you actually take the action, then it supports to go into that momentum. Is there anything that you would like to bring forth to the listeners?
I hope that maybe this conversation has awakened in them the want to be more curious. No needing, no having, no should. Just like really wanting to be more curious. Not only about yourself, sometimes really about the others in front of you. What is it that's going on? Or what is it that makes your son or your daughter, your mother, your father, your sister, anyone else, it doesn't matter, and be maybe in the space that they are in. What is what's happening on their side? And at the same time, as the card came out, what are you co-creating? What are you contributing to the situation, and how can you co-create something new? I do believe that we can co-design and redesign our moments in our lives. Some things are, again, some things we can't change. However, we can change how we show up in them and how we respond to them. So I would like, to go away or take away curiosity, co-creation. These are two big words that have a big meaning to me. And I hope that something came out in regards to these two that will serve them.
Where can the listeners find you?
So my webpage is www.claudia-pape, Pape.com. Okay. And then I do have, there's my webpage that you can read about me. There's a tab of the podcast. And then the podcast itself is in Buzzsprout, is in Spotify, is in Apple, and it's called Vivir en Curiosidad.
Thank you. I'll make sure that all that information is in the show notes so that they can find you. So I have been saying your name wrong. Can you say it again?
No, it depends on what language you say.
Yeah, I know, okay. But I want to hear.
I say Claudia Pape.
Claudia.
Yeah. Claudia.
Claudia. Mm-hmm. Am I saying it proper?
Yes.
No,
like
I'm
a cloud.
Not.
Like
cloud. Claudia.
Claudia.
See the articulation. I'm like, I know I'm not sounding the way it needs to sound.
And I was just realizing, and I'm also on Facebook and Instagram as Claudia Pape Coaching.
I will put that all in the show notes so that they can find you. Thank you for being here and having this beautiful conversation with me, Claudia. I truly appreciate you.
No, thank you for inviting me. Thank you for having me. We haven't talked in a while, and it was very great to see you here and have this deeper conversation, even without having connected in a longer time. So it shows us again, it's so easy to do sometimes.
It is. Remember, your desires matter. Be kind and soft with yourself.
Thank you, I will.
Thank you for making it all the way to the end. I appreciate you and your time. If you found anything that was relevant, or perhaps there's somebody that you think can benefit from this podcast, please share it out. Help grow the community. Help grow Liftoneself. You can find more information on our website at www.liftoneself.com. Until next time, be sure to be kind and soft with yourself. You matter.